Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm Raffi, joined by Davian. Davian, we are finally here. The football season has
Yes,
started
we
this
are
past
back.
weekend. We made it, which means that for the next
Did it.
16 weeks, for the next 30 weeks, we have our content. College football and NFL,
Yes.
we're good. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
We'll sprinkle in a little bit of hockey and basketball, but at least we have new content and recurring content.
No more talking about the Savannah
in and week
Bananas.
out. Hey, that was a fun podcast. I enjoyed
That was
that.
a really fun podcast.
As fun as all those podcasts were, we're finally in some deeper content, some deeper discussions as well about some of the main sports that we cover here on this podcast.
Right.
So I know you're excited. I'm excited. Although both of our teams we'll talk about quite short order didn't quite live up to the hopes that we were hoping for and didn't play up to their expectations. But Davian, before we get into that and just get into recapping what was week 1 of the NFL season, how are you? How are things? I love the little flag you have in the back. I think that's a new flag.
It's very inspirational. I wake up and I see it and I feel inspired. What's not been so inspirational has been the Patriots' performance this past week. But besides that, I've been good, Raffi. How have you been?
I've been doing good. Again, the Falcons seem to always Falcon things. Yeah. I'm tired. I'm not even at the point where I get upset. I just laugh comically at how they seemingly continue to find new ways to lose games. It's very creative, and whoever is the scriptwriter of the NFL season needs to come up with some new material rather than the Falcons consistently choking. I do say that, although I also love the scriptwriter because I look like a crazy person saying that the Chargers are going to choke, and then they always blow it. So at least there's some consistency with it, but maybe redundant jokes continue to be funny year in, year out. Maybe most people find it amusing. I know you find it amusing, Davian, but I think that's just because you might have something against me personally. But that's neither here nor there. Let's dive in. We'll start off with your team, the Patriots. Davian, I was a bit surprised when looking at the stats and the score from this Patriots-Raiders game because I did not watch it too in-depth. I did watch some of the highlights and I did look at the stats. For a Mike Vrabel coach team, I was quite surprised to see that Drake May threw the ball 46 times in that game. It really seemed different than when we saw Mike Vrabel's Titans teams in the past, where it was just give Derrick Henry the ball, give Derrick Henry the ball. Obviously, you don't have Derrick Henry, but that was one of the big things that stood out for me with this game. What were your overall thoughts about that, and then also just overall thoughts on the game? Because obviously, you didn't get the result that you would have liked.
Yeah, look, I just don't get it. When you have Travion Henderson in the backfield, when you have Ramondre Stevenson, when you have arguably one of the better running back cores right now in the league, I think, honestly, they're very young. I think that they're both have a lot of potential. Why not use them? Why are you making Drake May throw the ball close to 50 times this game? It doesn't make any sense. Run the ball. And it's not like they weren't able to run the ball. Travion Henderson was averaging 5.4 yards per carry, but he only got the ball 5 times. Why? I just don't get it. Yes, don't get me wrong, this Raiders defense is very, very good, especially their D-line, led by Max Crosby. And it definitely caused and wreaked havoc for Drake May. And we saw, the issues with Will Campbell. And, he's a rookie at the end of the day, right? And we saw some promises, but also sometimes where he wasn't so good. So at the end of the day, I really think that, I saw a lot of promise with Drake May. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of places where we could have improved. I love seeing Kayshon Boutte go off for over 100 yards. But there's no reason why Drake May should be throwing the ball over 50 times. Our defense needs to step up in many key areas because it seems like the only way we're going to be able to win on defense is if we're, 1, getting pressure, or 2, getting turnovers. And that is not a recipe for a winning recipe when you play very good teams like the Buffalo Bills.
100%. And the Patriots do have a pretty easy schedule when you look at it overall. So the big thing for them is Drake May taking that next step. But I agree. If you have, you didn't draft Travion Henderson to not rely on him. And you already have Stevenson as well, who
exactly
is more of a volatile running back in my opinion. But when he's on and when he's playing well, he's a good running back to lean on. So you have 2 solid running backs who can form a decent running back duo. For me personally, just was befuddling to see that they weren't banking on the run game a little bit more. And maybe I didn't watch the game well enough to where I was seeing maybe the Raiders are doing a really good job shutting it down. As you mentioned, Max Crosby, that D line on the Raiders is improved, and obviously when you have Max Crosby, he is the game record. But you also get to the point too where it's you can't continue to put the pressure on Drake May. Let him. He should be getting in the 30s for throws. He should not be throwing the ball almost 50 times, and the running backs only getting 8 to 9 carries. They should be. You should be much more balanced. And again, that's what was one of the big things that surprised me with Mike Vrabel's coaching debut for the Patriots, where we didn't see that balance. We didn't see. If anything, I would have imagined they would have leaned on the run game even more than we've seen in years past, just because it's a Mike Vrabel offense. So I think maybe it just had to do with Josh McDaniels. Maybe he was the main play caller, and then Mike Vrabel was handling more of the defensive side of things. But it'll be interesting to see this dynamic because Drake May is still a young quarterback. He's shown a lot of flashes. He showed them last year. He showed some flashes this past weekend. But you need to take some of the load off of him. And when you just drafted a running back as highly as you did, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they selected Henderson, I believe, in the second round. Use your running backs. You have those assets, and I'd honestly feel more. I feel more comfortable.
I don't understand how you understand this
than I do with the wide receivers.
Yeah. I mean, look,
that Josh
it's
McDaniels,
not like a wide receiver.
We can.
Yeah. We could talk about him all day. Look, the thing is, our wide receiver core is much better than what it was. I mean, I really liked seeing Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry getting involved again. I mean, don't forget that under Josh McDaniels, right? That's when he had Gronk, when he had Aaron Hernandez. That's a name to say. When he had really a lot of these tight ends, and it was a tight end offense. And I think that the Patriots were the first team to revolutionize that. And for so long, we've been stepping away from that. It's time to get back into that role. I remember when we first got Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, everyone was like, wow, the Patriots have the best tight end core in the league. But we just never fully used it to our best capacity. And I think that's because McDaniels was no longer the OC and Belichick wasn't really using them well. So, look, I believe that this team has a lot of promise. I do. Are we going to make it to the playoffs? I still think so. Yes. I remember, we could go back to, 2 weeks ago and where I predicted, that the Patriots would win this game. And of course they didn't, but I didn't see anything that caused me to be alarmed that, we also are going to join the tank bowl for Archie and then trade our first round pick. I really like Drake May. I really like Travion Henderson. I think Kayshon Boutte looks really good. Our defense definitely needs more work, but some guys stepped up when needed, so can't really complain too much. But Raffi, let's talk about the Falcons because we saw the first real debut of Michael Penix as the starter for the team, really, and really without any competition. Like everyone knew this is our guy, and so this was his first performance as that guy. Raffi, what is your take on it? Were you able to watch the game at all? If not, looking at the, being a Falcons fan, being around the Falcons community, in a sense, like on social media, what are you hearing? What are you thinking personally?
I thought Penix had a really strong debut. Obviously, there's some things that need to be improved upon. Obviously, I'd like for him to be a little bit more confident with the ball, connect on a few more passes that could have been big swings of momentum for the Falcons. But overall, I think he had a really solid debut, especially in the last 3 minutes of the game. One of the big plays was when it was, I believe, a 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, 4th and short, and Falcons had to get it. It was already 8 chances that they had to score a touchdown to take the lead, and they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. But Penix rolls out to the left and just flat out, like Indiana Penn State, right back to it, dives for the marker. People originally say he's down, he didn't make it. But then you see the replay and you're like, oh my gosh, he stretched across, made a miraculous play to get over the line to gain and create a first and goal for the Falcons, a new life, and they wind up scoring a touchdown on a 4th down where Penix goes up. Now, Kyle Pitts was wide open in the end zone. He could have very easily done a little Mahomes-like flick pass to Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Pitts managers would have gone crazy. He actually had 12 fantasy points too, which is unheard of. He actually had a pretty good game overall, but he decides, I'm just going to take it myself. Kalijah Cansey, we've heard this name before on the podcast, makes a move to try to bring him down. Penix, while trying to get brought down by Cansey, reaches out and scores the touchdown. Now, we can obviously talk about what happened afterwards. The Buccaneers, Emeka Ibuka, he's going to be a problem this year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Perfect player to be replacing the role of Chris Godwin. Then Chris Godwin's going to come back in October. So we can have that discussion shortly too. But the two efforts by Penix to pick up the first down while they're in fourth and short, and then later on fourth down, score the game leading touchdown before obviously they wound up losing the game. He showed a lot of flashes of him being that guy. We haven't seen a quarterback on the Falcons really do that, be that clutch and have that clutch X factor ever since Matt Ryan left, really. So to see Penix Jr. really step up and really shine late in the game was really good, even though it felt that outside of one of the first couple of drives and that end of the game for the Falcons offense, there really wasn't much else in the mid game. They did a much better job with the pass rush. I thought that they were getting some more pressure on Baker Mayfield. Obviously, the pass rush has been a big issue for the Falcons. I thought both Pierce and Walker had some bright spots as well, and hopefully they continue to develop and help bring that Falcons pass rush up to a more respectable level this year. And this game primarily stinks just for the fact that if Kadero Hodge just looks, he has a touchdown and the Falcons wind up winning the game. There's like 8 seconds left and the game's over essentially. But he just didn't expect the ball to come to him, which I'm like, you're running a go route to the end zone and you're not expecting the ball to come to you. What are you thinking? And then there was that. And then there's obviously the Koo miss, which we can talk about Koo. Probably time for the Falcons to look for another kicker. The Niners already did that with Jake Moody. I think, unfortunately, the Falcons need to look into that with Younghoe Koo as well. But I think there's a lot of positives for the Falcons. And obviously, they still falconed this game, and we'll have a discussion. But I can't complain too much of the Falcons. I think they're in a good place. The play calling was a little suspect at times, but I feel really good about the quarterback position right now, which makes my point a year and a half ago when people were like, why in the world would the Falcons take a quarterback at pick, I believe it was pick 10 or 11? I was like, I respect the pick. Honestly, I don't hate it. And that pick seems to be paying off really well. So sucks that you're paying $100 million to Kirk Cousins sit on the bench, but I think the Falcons are in a good position to, I still don't think they're going to win the division this year, but I do think that they'll be in the hunt for a playoff spot.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on, I think it's about Bijan Robinson in the run game. Like, look, this Bucs defense is very good, but you have to figure out a way to get Robinson running more. I feel like they Penix is a very good quarterback, I think. But I think that if you're able to get the run game going more, you're able to unlock Penix's full ability, where you can scramble, he can you can almost like, it reminds me of, like, I feel like Penix reminds me a lot of what the Falcons can do is what the Seahawks did with Russell Wilson when they had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, where you had a really good run game, you had a really good quarterback, and you're able to really, maximize both to its full potential. And I think you really have a great receiving core. I mean, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, even. I mean, hey, Kyle Pitts had 7 receptions for almost close to 60 yards, 59 yards. That is something to be said there, I think this offense is clicking better than it did last year. I think Penix is definitely a better fit for this team and the way it works, but they definitely do need to adjust it better. And the defense, I mean, there's always ways. I feel like the Falcons defense has never been perfect, and it's definitely shown an improvement, but Baker Mayfield and are a very good team. And there's a lot to be said there. But at the same time, I think that certain aspects of the team defense needs to be improved, or players need to step up, especially with the pressure game. You mentioned it has gotten better, the pass rush, but there's still a long ways to go, I think, for this Falcons team.
Yeah, and again, the big thing is just going to be the play calling to improve. You hit it.
Yeah, that too. It has to. Yeah.
Run game. Obviously, Tampa Bay is probably going to be one of the more tougher defenses to run on that the Falcons are going to play this year. But again, you got to find a way to get it going. They did a good job with dumping the ball off to Bijan in some more screen actions or just him getting spit out and then hitting him. Obviously, that was the first touchdown that they scored, was a dump off essentially to Bijan Robinson that he wound up taking for 50 yards to the house. So we'll see what winds up happening. But enough about our teams. Let's look into some of the other things. Davian, big question for you. Are the Dolphins cooked? Because, oh my goodness, did the Dolphins look absolutely horrific versus the Indianapolis Colts. I knew that we both agreed that, well, at least I thought that the defense was going to be a problem for the Dolphins. And for Daniel Jones to look like Andrew Luck, this is inexcusable for the Dolphins. I did not expect them to be this bad out the gate, and I don't think it's an overreaction for people to start saying the Dolphins are going to be likely picking in the top 5 this year, likely moving on from Tua. I know it's week 1. Typically, I don't like to sound the alarms. Normally, I'm the more, well, let's wait a couple weeks, let's see what happens. But if there's one team I'm sounding the alarm bells on right now, it's the Miami Dolphins, because I don't know what that game was. Tua, I think the jury's just out on Tua at this point. I think this season for the Dolphins is going to be a season where we're going to see Greer get fired. We're going to see McDaniels get fired. We're going to see the Dolphins likely move on from Tua, or at least draft his replacement. I think that everything with the Dolphins is essentially going to be set on fire in a few short.
I don't think it's a dumpster fire in the fact they're going to get rid of McDaniels and co. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Raffi, let's look at this team and on paper. Sure, Tua stinks, but Devon Achane in the backfield. You got Tyreek Hill still. Slower, still Tyreek Hill though. Jalen Waddle. You have Nick Westbrook, Ike Ikine, who was on the Jaguars before. I feel like they have a solid wide receiver core. Yeah, their defense is definitely not as good as it was, but it still has like Bradley Chubb, Minka Fitzpatrick that they just got. So at the end of the day, I feel like they have the pieces. It's just this team needs to figure it out, because that was abysmal. I don't know. Maybe they just weren't practicing as hard. Maybe it was just, I don't know. I think yes, the jury's out on Tua, but I'd give them at least a few weeks before we write this team completely off. Like, yes, because also like, Raffi, who knows? Maybe this Colts team is actually good. Maybe Daniel Jones is really that guy, and the Giants just didn't know how to use them. Raffi, there is a world that exists like that. Because don't forget, right? We just saw Aaron Rodgers look like 2012 2011, whatever, MVP Rodgers, right? That should not have happened. We saw him on the Jets. He sucked. But when you put a player with the right coaching staff, they can blossom. I mean, hey, the Patriots saw this past week. Geno Smith. They wrote him off. He didn't write back. And now he's a starting quarterback for the Raiders and is balling. So, yes, I agree. Do I want the Dolphins to suck? Yes. There would be nothing that would make me happier. And there would be nothing that would make me happier if the Patriots are to come into Miami next week and just completely put the nail in the coffin on this team. But I just can't write them off. I just can't. It's just on paper off. Like, how can you write off a team like this? It's just not possible. It's like the Yankees right now. Like, you can't write them off just because look at the team on paper. I mean, you just can't.
The Dolphins haven't won a playoff game. I don't think they've won a playoff game since I've been alive. I don't think either of us were alive last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. They have not shown us, even in the Mike McDaniels and Tua era, that they're a competent team. They made one run where they made it to the postseason, lost to the Chiefs because they're based in Miami. Why would you expect them to win in the 10-degree game versus the Chiefs in Arrowhead? But like, Tua, just over 100 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions is just not going to cut it. And with the NFL, where everything is so reliant on quarterback play, with Tua, I think we both agree, Tua is not the guy right now in Miami. And you're stuck with him, essentially, because you gave him a boatload of money for some reason after it was all the alarms were going off saying he's injured, he's very injury prone. We shouldn't take. we shouldn't give it an extension yet. We should ride out the next year, see what happens, and then make a decision. If he really balls out, then okay, we'll pay more money, but it is what it is. But no, they just shoveled him a bunch of money. He wound up getting hurt again. And it's really unfortunate because obviously we both want him to do really well and succeed and stay healthy, but I can't imagine the Dolphins are going to be any more than a 7 to 8 win team this year with if Tua doesn't get his act together and the team doesn't perform better. And I know you mentioned Tyreek Hill, but the more and more we look at it, Tyreek Hill hasn't gone over 100 yards, it feels like, in almost a year at this point. I quite literally can't remember the last time he was over 100 yards. I think it was week 1 last year was the last time he was over 100 yards. So I think that's another conversation that needs to be had too, where I think right now with the Miami Dolphins, we're done. They had their peak in 2023. That was their window. And now we're seeing the end of the window. The window is closed on the Miami Dolphins. I don't think that they're going to wind up winning with this core. Maybe if they really hit on their quarterback and if they bottom out, get a good core, really hit on a quarterback next year, maybe we can see them get back into it pretty quickly. But right now, I think if the Patriots go in and whoop the Dolphins next week, or at the very least beat them, I think there's a very, very good conversation that could be had that the Dolphins' window's completely shut. But I do want to move on to some other games. Davian, what other games really stood out to you? I think one big game that we can certainly discuss is the Ravens and the Bills, where the Bills pulled off a miraculous comeback
game of the year,
to
right?
beat the Ravens. And Davian, it feels like it's funny how even as years go on, we see the Falcons still falconing things, we see the Chargers charging things. I feel like no one talks enough about the Ravens and how they consistently blow games versus high caliber teams. And I know it's week 1, but this sure does feel like a game that's going to have implications on the playoff seeding come January when the playoffs are getting started. Because let's be honest, this is likely a 2-3 seeding scenario, or likely these two teams are going to be competing for the 1 seed in the AFC as well. So for the Ravens to have that tiebreaker in hand and just completely blow it once again, the defense, Jair Alexander had a really poor game in his debut for the Ravens. Davian, what are your thoughts on the Ravens? I know it's week 1. I'm not as sounding the alarms as I am about the Dolphins, but I need to see the Ravens play up to their competition and beat teams at their level.
Hold on. The Bills put on a miracle run at the end of the game. But let's be honest, this Ravens team was playing really, really well. Also, we're seeing prime Derrick Henry in the backfield, Raffi. That's insane. Derrick Henry's supposed to be washed by now. How's the King Henry, the chipmunk-looking guy, still running like
we already know out there? We already decided he's an alien. He's not an actual human.
There's no way he is human. I mean, he's pounding through those defenses he was this is 5 years ago when he was on the Titans. I can't. I feel like there's no arms to sound. It's just I think we just saw a performance from two of the best teams in the AFC. I mean, Raffi, you can't say the Chiefs are the best anymore. We just saw their performance against the Chargers. Mind you, yes, Justin Herbert looks like a different beast of an animal. I credit that because he has a girlfriend in Madison Beer. But, I really, really do like both of these teams in the Bills and the Ravens. I think that the Bills struggled a lot in the beginning of the game. I think it started to click. Everything started to click at the end of the game. But also, I feel like, at the end of the day, the Ravens kind of lost because of that fumble at the end, right? So, that's that's just a mistake. That's not really a concern of really game tactics or players per se. I think that I could pull up these stats right now, but I really feel like the wide receiver core has really finally started to step up for Lamar Jackson. Look, first off, they're turning at 170 yards. Let's just say that. All right, that speaks for itself. But we had Zay Flowers with 143 yards receiving. DeAndre Hopkins with 35 yards. Is this wide receiver core, receiving core deep? No. I mean, it's Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Andrews and the other tight end that they have. Forgot his name. So they do have a good receiving core. They have a great running back core. But when you look at the Bills, that wide receiver core concerns me. And what? You have Keon Coleman, okay, amazing, and then Khalil Shakir and Joshua Palmer. Like Shakir is great, but Joshua Palmer is wide receiver 3. I mean, yeah, Dalton Kincaid is really good at tight end, but I don't know, Rafi. It's this Bills team, as much as I love their win over the Ravens, and as much as I just said that they're one of the best teams, I think, in the AFC, I don't know how long it could last because one injury on their receiving core, and they're kind of done for because their running back core is James Cook, and he's not that great. He's just not.
The Ravens continuously, we saw it last year where they looked really good in the first half of the divisional round matchup versus the Bills. They looked really, really good. And then we saw in the second half, the Ravens just completely just forget how to play football. Mark Andrews just has a bad case of the drops and just cannot catch a ball for the life of him, winds up losing the game for the Ravens. This isn't just the Ravens played really well in the first half. This is a consistent theme where the Baltimore Ravens play really well in the first half for the first 3 quarters, let their foot off the gas, and have no killer instinct. They don't know how to finish games. And I'm just saying that when you consistently blow games, we saw it a few years ago when they lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. We saw it the year before when they lost to the Bengals in the playoffs. When they were 14-2 and lost to the Titans in the playoffs. When Derrick Henry, who now's on their team, ran all over them, and they got run out by Ryan Tannehill playing quarterback for the Titans. Davian, this isn't as much as I'd like to say, okay, like, yes, the Bills were just a really good team. It was a miracle run. It feels like we're consistently year in and year out talking about the Ravens blowing games. Last year, I think opening day, they blew a 2-touchdown lead to the Raiders in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I'm just for the Baltimore Ravens, they lack killer instinct, and that is something they need to have if they want to finally come out of the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2012. Because at this moment in time, I don't think they have that killer instinct. You saw Derrick Henry run all over them, and then obviously bad luck at the end of the day, but Derrick Henry then fumbles the ball, leading to a Bills touchdown towards the end of the game. I need to see the Baltimore Ravens go and play a team like the Bills, the Chiefs, or just get into the playoffs and have that killer instinct and win. Out of any game, and it's tough to say week 1 a must-win game, but this was a must-win game for the Ravens because, again, in all likelihood, you hit it on the head. We can talk all about the Chiefs and if they're still the best team in the AFC. But the AFC number 1 seed, home field advantage in the bye week, is coming down to 3 teams, barring someone going on a miracle run. The Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills. These 3 teams are likely all going to have very similar records. So the big thing is going to come down to head-to-head tiebreaker. The Ravens had a prime chance to put the nail in the coffin, end the game, have that tiebreaker, you're good for the rest of the year, essentially. And they blew it. They blew it again. And right now, if the Ravens had finished the game and won, we're having a different conversations. It's like what we had with the Bills before they lost to the Chiefs again, where it's like, oh my gosh, the Bills finally didn't blow it. It's just, for me, I need to see the Ravens have that killer instinct, and I need to see them finish out a game before I can see them potentially go on a deep playoff run.
They couldn't finish off the game because, one, I guess their defense kind of sucked at the end, but also it was because of that fumble at the end of the day. It's like those are things that I think you can't control. But
it's just recurring things. It feels like though for them, it feels like every single time in big games we're having this discussion of, oh, if this ball just bounced the right way. At some point, you gotta look in and say, okay, what are we doing wrong to where we're so susceptible to if the ball bounces the wrong way, we're going to lose? Because it feels like every single time the ball bounces the wrong way, it's at the worst possible time, and it leads to the Ravens losing. And I'm not even a Ravens fan, but it's driving me crazy. I think it's just the Falcons PTSD. Where it's just
look, we all remember last year against the Chiefs when Isaiah Likely, was like, it was because his foot was too big that they lost that game, right? That game-winning touchdown that was, ruled back because his toes were basically on the line. But, and yes, I agree that, they do need to close out these games. But, I still think this is not a Derrick Henry we saw last year, Raffi. This is like a new and improved Derrick Henry. And I think it'll be very interesting to see, what he does come, when we look forward into the rest of the season. The wide receiver core, I think I already touched on that, but it'll be interesting to see how their defense steps up more because you can't be letting up 41 points. That's just not going to win you games.
We're both in agreement on the Ravens being a playoff team and one of the top teams in the AFC. Don't get me wrong.
No.
The Dolphins, I'm saying they're done. That's completely different. The Ravens are still going to make the playoffs. They're still going to be a top. They're still going to be a top 3 seed in the AFC. All I'm saying is, please just have killer instinct for once and finish out a game, and don't let your foot off the gas. That would make so many people feel so much more confident in them, to where then they're predicting them to actually make it to the Super Bowl for once. Because at the moment, I will continue to have them losing to either the Bills or the Chiefs in the postseason. Davian, any final thoughts? I know we really talked about 4 games, but those felt like some of the bigger games.
We talked about 4 big games.
Any other final comments? Justin Fields balled out. I just want to shout that out. I know Aaron Rodgers wound up winning that game too, but I thought both quarterbacks looked really good. Justin Fields finally looked like a really solid quarterback, so definitely wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Raffi, for not talking about the Bears. That gives me a lot of joy that we didn't need to touch on that. The Browns were the Browns. The Bengals worry me a lot. The Giants, damn, that offensive line still sucks. When they came out and said, "Oh, Russell Wilson will be the starter again," I'm like, thank God that you're not putting Jackson Dart there because he would get absolutely mauled by that team. Cam Ward's first performance, look, he looked like a rookie. He overthrew the ball a lot. His teammates didn't really catch the ball a whole lot. The Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, you got to step up. You can't just be playing.
That was such a brutal game because the Cowboys very easily could have won that game. If CeeDee Lamb, on one of the 3 passes that were thrown to him in clutch time, just ended in an interception. And they weren't bad. Dak Prescott overall, although he only had 8 points for me in fantasy in both my leagues.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there. He had a pretty good game overall. I thought the Cowboys, for losing Micah Parsons, you think after the shock of that too, the fact that it happened only a week earlier, the team would just look completely discombobulated. The whole team would just
they looked completely fine.
Fire. Everything's terrible. Locker room chemistry's off the charts. Poor. They played really well overall.
They did. Yeah,
I'd say they were a defensive X factor player away from beating the Eagles, but they're also a couple CeeDee Lamb catches away from beating the Eagles too. So overall. I think we both can. I at least I'd assume we're both in agreement that the Cowboys this year, at best, probably a 9-8, 8-9 team in that middle range of they can beat some teams that are beneath them, but they're not going to do anything crazy this year or wind up making the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Texans that concerned me. CJ Stroud not playing that great. Matthew Stafford didn't look bad.
Davian, I'm so surprised. You traded away your best offensive lineman, and now no one can guard. Oh my gosh, I'm so surprised. Wow, this is the most shocking revelation. Team with worst O-line has problems defending the pass rush. Wow, what a revelation that we're having here.
The only other person I like to talk about is J.J. McCarthy. I really liked what I saw from him. I think he showed a lot of poise. Especially heading into the fourth quarter, the team seemed to be down and out. He really rallied that team back. The Bears were also the Bears, and they kind of choked that game as well as per usual. But and then the last team I want to give a shout out to is the Chargers. Hey, they look really good. I like them. I like Justin Herbert. There's a reason why
Going back to JJ McCarthy, he essentially did what I was expecting, where out the gate, I was expecting him to struggle a little bit. First NFL game, first jitters. The Bears defense for whatever the fourth quarter was is a pretty solid and competent unit. Obviously, it's the Bears, but overall, it's a pretty competent unit. Definitely, I'd say upper half around a pretty average defense, maybe above average anyways. He played pretty well, JJ McCarthy. He got, after that first couple of drives of, he does not look good. He's missing a bunch of passes and looks completely lost out there. He really came into his own, and as you mentioned, led the Vikings to a big win and led them to a fourth quarter comeback against the Bears. Now it is the Bears, and the Bears are similar to the Falcons, where they both just find ways to lose games somehow. But I feel really good about the Vikings making the playoffs after watching this comeback win versus the Bears. I expected JJ McCarthy to have more struggles for the first couple games, but it really felt like it only took him the first half for him to get into the zone. And JJ McCarthy isn't a guy that I envision being a top 10 quarterback at some point. But I think he's at least going to be in that 10 to 12 range, where 10 to 14 range, where he's not going to completely elevate your team and be one of the great quarterbacks making phenomenal plays. But he's a really solid quarterback who, if you put him in a solid system, put him around really solid weapons, put him behind a good offensive line like the Vikings, I think we're going to see a lot of success from him this year. And I feel really good about my prediction about the Vikings making the playoffs right now. That game really solidified it for me.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment too on JJ McCarthy. But hey, it's only week one, Raffi, and we already talked for close to 40 minutes. I think that's something to be said about there. That's going to be a very exciting season. There's I feel like there's a lot of interesting games that we didn't even touch. We saw some teams that are clearly tanking, like the Saints. I mean, Spencer Rattler's really not going to make it for you. But yeah, hey, I mean, the Commanders looked awesome. We got a really great lineup of games coming up this week. Thursday Night Football, Commanders, Packers. I think it's going to be a great game. You got the Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl rematch. So a lot of great games coming up, Raffi, and I think it's going to be a very exciting season for all NFL fans.
100%, and that is so crazy with you mentioning those things too, because a lot of it is just common sense. If only the Saints had a rookie quarterback of some sorts that they could potentially start the season with and see how he's doing, because I think we've seen Spencer Rattler before, so you think that maybe you want to give a guy who's never had a shot
maybe
yet
there's this
an
guy by the
opportunity.
name of
Also,
Tyler Shuck. Oh, so why
before I
is
want to,
yeah? Sorry, one
yeah,
last thing, Raffi.
yeah,
I do need to say.
yeah.
Why is Spencer Rattler throwing 46 times when you have Alvin Kamara in the backfield? That's it. Raffi, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just put icing on the cake. Davian, if I ever see those Saints jerseys or anyone wearing a Saints jersey, that specific one that they wore, those uniforms, I might actually go crazy. Those are the worst. That's the worst jersey helmet like outfit combination I've ever seen. Never wear that again. Please. This isn't even. I like the Saints. I'm a Falcons fan, but I do like the Saints. I love Drew Brees back in the day. Never, ever, ever wear that uniform again. Never. It looks terrible. It's awful, and it no. Some things are meant never to be shared with the public, and that is one of them. Do not wear it ever again. But that'll do it for this edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast as we close out dissing the Saints. And trust me, if this is any indication, week one, we're likely going to be dissing on the Saints much, much more over the next 16 weeks. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for more NFL, college football, and other sports discussions now that college football started, NFL started, and hockey and basketball are about to start too. College basketball starts in short order as well. So we'll be talking about all these big sports over the course of the next few months. So be sure to stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.